Today's guest on Intentional Conversations is Nick Ade. He's the CEO of the Central Pennsylvania Youth Ballet here in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Today you'll hear some perspective from Nick on his pursuit to excellence, and most importantly, for me, the importance of culture in an organization. I hope you'll enjoy it. Well, Nick, we're just going to dive right in, okay?
Yep, that sounds great.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Good. Hey, just curious, when you were a kid, like 5, 7, 8 years old, what was the dream? What did you think about being when you grew up?
Well, lots of things. 5, 7, years old. I'm playing baseball and I love it. Absolutely love it. So of course the dream was like playing second base for the Dodgers, that growing up in Los Angeles. So that was one thing. But then I very quickly after that, I really started to discover classical ballet. My first teacher, Helen Clark, she really got me to understand, how beautiful ballet can be and that it can be for boys. And then I really was challenged in a lot of ways, so much so that she tried to expose me to, what's the end goal of ballet, and that's a performance. And so she took me to a performance of American Ballet Theater's Swan Lake, and I saw dancers perform that I didn't even know that was even possible. And so from that performance on, I really thought, okay, I want to give this a shot. I want to try this. And so I realized that my sports started to become better, and because of my agility, my flexibility, and all the things that I was learning in ballet, that I just became better at everything. And so the beautiful thing about it was I found ballet, and it just continues to this day to give me so much. So I didn't really have the end goal other than 5, 7, 9-year-old going, yeah, Dodgers,
okay.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
But then once I found ballet, I thought this is something that I'd like to pursue.
Yeah. You're originally from the West Coast?
Yes, Los Angeles, California.
What brought you to Central Pennsylvania?
So I left Los Angeles at 15 years old. I trained as much as I could in Los Angeles. Needed to find, I was the only boy in the school. I needed to find a place to land so that I could take the next steps to pursue a career in ballet. So I left home, moved to North Carolina, Winston-Salem, North Carolina at 15 for high school. Then went back to the West Coast after high school and trained with San Francisco Ballet. And from there, I spent 17 years in Seattle, where I was a professional dancer with Pacific Northwest Ballet for 10 years, and then quickly became their school principal for 7 years. Once that happened, it was about my last couple years of dancing into my tenure as a school principal at Pacific Northwest Ballet, where I met Marcia Dale Weary. And she is was the founder of Central Pennsylvania Youth Ballet, and we hit it off. Really just similar philosophies, like-minded values, and just a pursuit of what ballet can do for a human being. We just saw eye to eye on that, and how we can help kids. And so it just was a natural fit. So in 2012, she gave me a call, and it was the fastest move we ever did. But it was wonderful.
Well, I think fit's always a really critical, important aspect between employer and employee, and just in life in general, where you fit in. What were some of the filters or processes you used, or that became obvious to you that this was a really good fit?
So over the years, I started coming here as a guest teacher in 2004. So still dancing, I had already fallen in love with teaching, already knew that dancing as a professional dancer was going to only be my springboard into teaching. I knew I loved it. I knew I had to do it. And so I came as a guest teacher, and Marcia saw one of my classes, and she said, why are you doing it that way? And I thought I was in trouble. I thought, I've done something wrong, summer program, guest teacher,
Right.
And she actually said, no, I like the way that you did that. That was more efficient. And so we just started talking about ballet. And the more we talked about ballet, then we talked about, but did you see how they reacted? The kids really understood now how wonderful their work and their improvement can be. So then we would start to talk about, kids in general and how we can help them and how we shape them, and that this all goes beyond ballet. And then we start talking about the graduates that she had seen go through the school, and now one is a doctor, one is a veterinarian, another one, you know, has gone and done wonderful things in ballet, but even beyond ballet. So just being able to have that like-minded connection, I knew that this was a place I didn't just want to be, I needed to be here. Mm-hmm. And that's where I first was really introduced to the importance of culture. Culture is vital. And unfortunately, Marcia passed in 2019. And that's what we've really taken a really long, hard look at in terms of we're not going to change our culture, but we're going to take everything that was beautiful within Marcia, and that also lives in us, that we believe in, and we're going to share that, because as long as we do that, everything continues to thrive.
Yeah, tell us more about your culture and why is it important?
Well, it's important because you really want to be able to have everybody move at the same pace, and if you have an outlier or someone who isn't a good cultural fit, it doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It doesn't mean they're a bad teacher or a bad marketer or a bad vice president. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter, but it needs to be able to, everyone needs to be a good cultural fit, because the legacy that we want to have within an organization has to live beyond a founder or a CEO or anyone in the organization. It has to kind of live and breathe and be its own being. And as long as everyone continues to be that good cultural fit, progress happens for the organization. Yeah. Progress happens for for the individuals. They become better, but also you thrive, and that's more real than an org chart or just throwing something up on the wall to say like, well, these are these may be our values, but we have to live it. Yeah. And so you have the values, and that you have to measure yourself by. That's what you're trying to attain. And you're always trying to become better at that. But how do we get to those values? The behaviors. Mm-hmm. And culture really has to do with our behaviors in order to, does that fit in line with our values or not?
So how would you describe your culture?
I think it's one of, it's a pursuit for excellence. It's thoughtful. And by thoughtful, that's really about having a global perspective of the organization. So a teacher who is solely a teacher should also, have perspective of, well, what are we doing in marketing? They're doing that in marketing. Oh, okay, that's great. That's important. Mm-hmm. That affects me, because that affects how many kids are going to be in the classroom. Right. And so that affects how many kids I can affect and teach. So it's really having that thoughtfulness. Also being able to be unapologetic with our expectations. CPYB is known for really rigorous work, but we also, counter that with a lot of empathy and a concentration on building trust. If you can have those things, you can have high expectations, you can have rigor, you can have long hours and expect excellence, but it has to be done with a balance of empathy, and also if you've built trust with the kids, then you know that when you're giving them a correction, that it's the truth and that you have their best interests in mind. Yeah. And that's really kind of at the core of what we are trying to do inside the studio, in the office, and outside the studio.
That sounds great. So experience is the best teacher, right? Mm-hmm. If you were to go back now and coach your younger self, what might you tell yourself?
Oh, patience. Patience. I didn't have the best body for ballet naturally. Tight back, tight hamstrings. The what we call turnout, the rotation of your hips to be able to create a good line. I didn't have that naturally, so I had to really work at understanding how to create that line, but also really understand, okay, how do I create movement at the same time so I'm not restricting myself. So I had to study a lot about ballet, and I always felt like it needed to happen right away, because I felt that because I was limited in my facility, that for every time that someone else attempts something and they have a natural body for it, I don't want to get left behind. And so if I would have just had the patience a little bit to trust the process and say, I'll get there. I'll get there. But, you can't expect it today.
Yeah.
That probably would have saved me some frustration as a dancer, but also it served me because I was in pursuit of something to be able to function at a high level artistically. So I would teach myself patience. I maybe mentally give myself a little bit of grace. After trying really hard and feel like you're not going to catch up. So I think patience is one of those things that I probably spent a little bit too much time, not stressing, but just wanting it to happen now.
Yeah. So you were a dancer. You loved the art of dancing. All the aspects that go with it. I think a lot of CEOs and business owners, they're in their craft, right? They're building the craft. They're working on the craft. They're loving what they do every day, and then they become the CEO. And now I'm not in my craft every day. I'm on my craft every day. How do you make that transition? What are the things that you've done that you found were really productive for you in that you would share in terms of the difference between being in it versus being on it?
I think one of the biggest differences is that when you're a teacher and you're in the craft, I'm in the craft, I'm in the studio, I'm looking for the corrections, I'm trying to take, this group of kids, and in 90 minutes, how much can I pull out of them and how much can I help them succeed? And when I take my teacher hat off and I put my CEO hat on, I need to have a much broader sense of the organization, that it's not so looking inward to finite small details.
Right.
I need to be able to communicate to my staff. I need to communicate broader thoughts so that they can be the ones to be able to also finish details and to be able to bring perspectives and to be able to then for me to listen. And that's something that as a teacher, you do listen to if a student is not feeling well or they're saying, I'm having trouble with this turn. But with a staff, you want to create an environment where whatever you say can and should be challenged if for some reason there's a better idea.
Right.
And they need to, that takes time to build that kind of trust. And that's where when I'm working on the business and on the craft, I find myself needing to make sure that I start to, and this is something I'm learning every day, just like ballet, I'm stepping back a little bit and listening. I'm not trying to be the first one to talk in a meeting. I'm not trying to be the one that knows everything. And one of the things that also I try and work at is patience, because being a ballet dancer, you have to be incredibly competitive with yourself. It's just you. My dad used to always tell me, he would always compare ballet to boxing. And of course one eyebrow would go up and like, what do you mean by that?
Right.
It's just you. It's you and your body and your training to be able to be on display, and there's no hiding. And that, to be able to train at that high of a level and to want to succeed, you need to be extremely competitive within yourself. You don't want to look sideways. You don't want to compare yourself to other people. And that's where I saw, okay, I can get that parallel with when you're working on the business. You need to be worried about everybody else. I need to take care of everybody else. I need to make sure that, if someone is short-staffed, how can I help you? I have to be the first one to be able to say, how can I help you, so that we need to become better as a group. If we don't become better as a group, then the organization doesn't get better as a group. And that's where, again, culture comes into play, where, you have to be selfless. You have to be willing to roll your sleeves up and say, how can I help?
Yeah, talking to other business leaders and CEOs, leaning into the leadership team, relying on them.
Yes.
What are some of the things that you do tangibly to lean into them and to rely on them? How do you engage that process, and what have you seen come out of it?
I'll kind of answer the end part first. What we've seen come out of it is an enormous amount of trust. So we started with a a system called EOS, and a lot of people are familiar with EOS and Entrepreneurial Operating System. And we started that process, and what ended up happening is we really saw that sometimes we're not really focused on the most important things for the organization, and that might be important to you, but it's not the most important thing for the organization. So what we did was we started to concentrate on those things, and it started to give people in the leadership team more global thinking. And when you have that, you have the ability to get so much more done and accomplish much more as an organization in 1, 3, 5 years, and you know where you're headed. Yeah. And so the thing that I loved about that process is everything that I was kind of imagining and thinking and wanting to be able to bring everybody else along, it was a tool that gave us the opportunity to do that. It made us really sit down, look in the mirror and say, what are we doing right? And what are we doing that needs to be improved? And so now we have very honest conversations. We're allowed to be able to I mean, I personally like it when they call me out and say, well, no, that you didn't say that last week, did you? And then it's like, oh yeah, I did, I'm sorry. It's just about self-improvement. And that's the thing I love about it the most is you lean on your leadership team in order to create progress. And just like ballet, it's not about like the end goal. Like when I was a kid, I saw that performance.
Right.
What I fell in love with ballet the most was I cared less about that end goal. I loved the process. Yeah. And I loved the progress that I could see every day that, okay, I'm getting a little bit more flexible. I'm getting a little bit more flexible. And that's what I see in our leadership team. We're making incremental progress. And every time we meet once a week and we're having those meetings, we're making incremental progress so that a year from now, which goes by faster than anything, you're there. Yeah. You can look back and say, oh yeah, we did make all that progress.
Yeah. So reflecting in that, when you are looking at you're not so focused on the end result. You have a picture of looking at where you're going, the progress, the process, the journey. You know, we talk to ourselves at a rate of 1,800 words a minute.
Wow.
So how do you manage that self-talk? Because while you could be self-encouraging, you could be self-deprecating. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things you've done to keep yourself encouraged? You're the CEO. You're at the top.
Yeah. So again, I'm at the top of the org chart, but I'm not at the top in terms of I don't know everything.
Yeah.
I don't have the perspective of our choreographer. I don't have the same perspective as our children's division coordinator. So yeah, I mean, some final decisions are up to me, but it's about that relentless pursuit of excellence. That's what keeps me going. Yeah. I still feel like, I've been a CEO now for 10 years, and I was a school principal for 9 years, 2 at CPYB, 7 in Seattle, and then I was a dancer for 10 years, and I still feel like that kid who, like, when you first do something or you first engage in something, I'm like, curious is the wrong word. I'm just ambitious to soak in and learn. Yeah. And to, I want as much information about it as possible. And I want to figure out a better way to be able to make myself better, which hopefully will then make the organization better. And so it's that hunger for progress that I don't think ever gets old. It didn't get old when I was a dancer, didn't get old when I was a teacher, hasn't gotten old as a CEO. So I just think that's the makeup of what really keeps me going.
Yeah, and I would say that's the mark of a great leader too.
Oh, thank you. And that's the thing. I don't even think of myself as that. I think of myself as like, I'm still learning. I still have so much more to learn. There are people out there who have so much more knowledge than I do. Kind of like ballet, I just want to catch up. I want to catch up to those people who know much more than I do. Yeah.
We've got just about another minute left. What's on the horizon for Nick?
Well, my daughter's going to college next week.
Nice.
University of Delaware. Couldn't be more proud of her. I love my work here. It is more than a job. What is on the horizon is really, for me, progress. We're growing again at CPYB, which is great. I want CPYB to continue to thrive and to grow as an organization. And that's not just by quantity, it's about quantity as well. And what I mean by that is the more that we look back and analyze how we got here, then, okay, that will tell us that worked, that didn't, and that will tell us what's next.
Yeah.
And so the more we look internally to ourselves as an organization and understand, okay, what are we taking with us to the future, and what can we leave behind?
Yeah.
What didn't work? And that's okay. It's like that's not a failure or anything, but what can we now just take with us? And then we get to the next spot, and they say, okay, well, we're here now. We've grown into X amount of kids, or we've done this project. All right, what worked? What didn't? Now, how do we move on? And we look at that from a perspective of productions, training, organizationally in terms of staffing, in terms of marketing, in terms of being able to, we now have our own theater, so what do we want to program in there? Kids' experiences, and also just our effect on the community.
Yeah.
So what is next? Constantly looking at ourselves and saying, what are we moving forward with, and what are we leaving behind?
That's great insight. Thank you for joining us today for Intentional Conversations. Our hope is that this will inspire you at some level, something you've heard today that will be a takeaway for you. Maybe you'll share it with a friend or a family member or someone in business. Intentional conversations are exactly that. They're made to be intentional. I hope you have some.
I think that was great. I'm really curious, what is your favorite ballet?
My favorite ballet? You have to understand there's professional ballet that you see on the stage of New York and London and Paris and everything. And those are beautiful professional dancers. And I know I'm biased, but our kids, I would rather go to the Whitaker Center or to Hershey Theater and watch our kids perform, because you forget that they're kids. And Alan Heinlein, our director of the pre-professional division and resident choreographer, he did a Romeo and Juliet in 2019, like weeks after Marcia passed. And that ballet, I will put that ballet down on any other version, any other company, I'll put that side by side by anybody. It really was not only an amazing choreographic feat, but what the kids did, they did such a mature way of representing Romeo and Juliet, and they were actually 16, 17, which Romeo and Juliet were teenagers. So that experience, I even just got the chills, because it's like that's it, that's the real deal. Like, to me, that's the new bar that we're always gonna try and get back to.